prioritized as a key ban. I would love for them to switch it up and really pull out this Grace pick here, because Grace works so well in so many compositions that we see right now in this meta. So they're going to go ahead and just pick the Lyra up. So that does leave Lance open. So they're probably going to pick up the Lance here and just either ban or take the Grace like they did in the Game 1 draft. So it may turn out very similar in terms of what we've been seeing here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the Kestrel is available.
Wow,
they're going to go with the
Vox.
Vox. We have not seen Vox be prioritized like this in this series thus far. Usually when it comes out, it's like the last pick or second to last.
This feels a lot like regular season right now with this draft.
Yeah, I like it because Vox can build a poison shift build, and they'll counter the Lyra, and that's why sometimes people won't pick a Lyra first pick if Vox is up, because Vox is so good into a Lyra due to the poison shift and its attack speed build.
And now by banning away the Kestrel, G2 is almost forcing the Grace ban. Even though we have not seen Grace get played yet, it is forcing Mousesports to have to say, okay, we want to make sure we have the only healer here. We're going to ban away the Grace, and that leaves so many options available for G2.
Yeah, they're probably going to pick up the Lance here to save the last counter pick to the enemy composition. That's a key counter pick jungle there. So I think Lance will potentially come out here for the side of G2. That's been a very popular pick for both teams right now.
Yeah, and you just saw in that statistic there, and an interesting point to bring up is Vox is actually Hundo's most played carry this season. It's something that he's very comfortable on, something that, I mean, across the board, Vox is just one of the most played carries, full stop. Never mind just for Hundo, but definitely something he's proficient on. And once again, the Lance comes in. Yeah. This could go to Keanu, but it also could go to Dark Potato. Yeah,
we're going to see Celeste picked up here with a strong jungler, potentially a Grumpjaw. Again, I don't see a lot of Cruel for whatever reason. Cruel is so strong with a Celeste. So let's see if they do pull out that Celeste and a potential weapon carry such as Cruel or Glaive here.
Yeah, it's really surprising, even more so, that we haven't seen the Cruel, because Cruel has historically been such a popular pick in Europe specifically. So the fact that they really haven't been looking towards it seems very strange to me. But with the Lyra there, the Lance is going to be flexed. So they can't really say, okay,
wow,
this is going to be a Captain Lance or anything like that. So Lyra Samuel is a very common duo that we see a lot. I would expect them to then go for something in the lane, something with some weapon power to be able to try and go toe-to-toe with that Vox. Maybe something like the Ringo that we see or saw start to come up a little bit more at the end of the season to try and outrange the Vox throughout the early to mid game.
Yeah, I think Ringo would make sense here. I don't really like the weapon Blackfeather laners and the playstyle with a Samuel here. They're going to go with Gwen, and we know Apto actually is one of his signature carries. He was amazing on Gwen. It's a great pick into Lance because her Skedaddle just neutralizes the root there. So I think here G2 will probably go with Celeste to counter the Samuel jungle. Celeste is known to be a very good pick into Samuel, although would lose the early game against a Samuel Lyra, but definitely would win the late game once she scales.
Yeah, the Gwen was actually one of their highest win rate heroes throughout the regular season. 4 games, or four wins, 1 loss for an 80% win rate. The highest win rate of any hero that was played more than 2 or 3 times.
And it was something that we saw a lot towards the start of the season in Split 1. It
when
really
they were winning.
fell off towards the later stage of the season. So I'm curious to see how well it will do now that we're here on Update 2.7. But here we go.
Wow,
Fortress comes on through for G2 Esports. Now, interestingly enough, I was actually talking to Rap last night at the Gangstars party, and I asked him what his favorite hero to play was right now, and he said Fortress. So this may well be a Captain Fortress alongside that Weapon Lance of Dark Potato.
It very likely will be. I would assume so, but there is the argument to be made for running it as the jungle Fortress to have the CP and the Vox go weapon power. But it'll be interesting. We know that G2 is a team that is not afraid to go double weapon power.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake though. I would rather see a CP Fortress because double weapon power is really easy to counter, and once you get to the late game and your opponent has Atlas along with armor, it's gonna be a really tough sell. So they need to snowball early with Fortress. And I think they picked Fortress specifically to counter the Lyra heals and to get onto the Samuel and burst him down.
Well, we'll see if they can bring that to pass. It's time to head into Game 5 of the first series here at the Unified Western Live Championship. It's time to get over to our casters and get into the game.
Thank you very much, Munch. And I can't quite hear you, everybody. This is game number 5 of the the first best of 5 in the Western Live Championships. I'm ready to get into the game. 2-2.
It's going to be really good. And also, compositionally, we've got some interesting ones here, Jaws. I actually really like seeing a Fortress out of G2. It feels right. You know, this is something that if there's a legacy for that team, along with maybe the Lance in the jungle, was something that they've always really liked. Back when Dingo was on the lineup, they certainly played it a great deal. It's something that they should know how to work around and work with. Let's see if they can make it happen.
We'll have to wait and see. Here we go, onto the fold for the last time in this best of 5. Who will go to day number 2? This game will decide it. Seeing a brand new pick once again in this Gwen up in the lane.
Yeah, the Gwen also a very interesting pick in addition to that Fortress, something we haven't been seeing a ton of. It does do a lot of damage, and it's going to be something that can fight well early, which is another thing to take into consideration here, although look at this, level 1 gank.
Oh, Atfel dodging out of the Impale, but taking a lot of damage. He could just go down right now, and he does to Dark Potatoes Lance. G2 starting it off strong.
We call that one a set piece, Jaws. That's when they already knew what they were going to do before the game started. Really nice stuff there. Very well prepared by G2. You can see that they've been putting their thinking caps on back at the hotel last night, and it works out beautifully. If Hundor can actually push his wave in, and also, I would have liked to see maybe Dark Potatoes stay in lane. Sorry, not Dark Potato, Kiana and Nakoa stay in lane, just to help push that wave in to deny some creeps to the turret, make it harder for Apfel to farm up. As it stands, I can't see Apfel missing too many of these, maybe a couple, but at this level of play, it's pretty easy to land these creeps. So actually, yeah, yeah, exactly a couple. 10 to 8.
Yeah, exactly that. Well counted. Normally caster math isn't too great, but you're proving your worth, AJ. Now,
I'm on point so far.
Oh, yes, you are. Dark Potato, with that 1 kill, he's picked up 3 weapon blades to boots. We saw it in game number 1, his Lance in the jungle is just terrifying to go up against, especially when coupled with this Fortress. The engage potential as soon as Keanu hits level 6 is just terrifying.
For anyone out there thinking of doing the stat challenge, oh, hang on.
Oh my goodness, there we go. The engage onto Just Man, 2 stuns land.
One
that
more.
wall hit just too much for him to bear. Hundor finds it with the last basic attack, does dash away as well. Sonic Zoom leading him to safety. G2, pedal to the metal.
It really is, and you know, Sweet Joe was talking about double weapon power in the late game, sure, but you gotta get there, right? Mousesports at this pace might not even make it. Look at this, Keanu doing so much work. And the Doom is here to back up his teammate, though. Dark Potato, wants to go
nice route straight onto Atfel. The Gideon Wall's going to displace him. Beautiful play. And Doom will find his 2nd kill of the game. Hundor was under a lot of threat, but G2 managed to back him up.
So if you guys are thinking of doing that stat challenge, you want to win some ice, I would definitely do a stat of how many times Dark Potato hits his Impale. I'm curious. I think it might be close to 100% at this point. But beautiful early game here from G2. As I said, set piece in the beginning, going for that level 1 gank. Very few people make that play in Vainglory, and it's something which can really pay dividends so long as your jungle doesn't punish too hard. It didn't seem like Mousesports was able to make much happen off the back of that one. They're also doing a great job of keeping that pressure on. They're not just going to find a kill and then do nothing with it. They're trying to snowball their lead. They know that if they get to the late game, Mousesports can just buy certain defensive items that make it very hard. Plus, Samuel is a hero that's very good against a composition that just wants to run at you. You just throw the Drifting Dart backwards, you buy a Frostburn, and you're going to be able to slow people up pretty consistently.
Right ball well used fairly early. G2 not waiting to engage after that. The Drifting Dart did come out from Doom. There's going to be a big cooldown used for Just Man, though. There's the Impale Atfel underneath the turret, using the Skedaddle to get that cleanse. Does end up walking away. Doom takes a couple of turret hits, actually.
Much.
Almost went down, so now they're having to back off.
If he didn't take those turret shots, then Mousesports would have forced G2 to be in a really scary position and have to clear the wave whilst being at risk of dying. As it stands, having to go back, they've actually opened up a window for perhaps even aggression out of G2, but more importantly, for them to back, heal, buy items, and shove the lane out. That was a real window for Mousesports, man. They had an opportunity there. Now, one thing we haven't talked about a lot, we've been talking a lot about the early game of G2. We do have to talk about the early game of Mousesports as well. Samuel can be a very scary force early on. You do a lot of damage with the Malice and Verdict, especially once you pick up your first item. And also Gwen, everyone knows Gwen is a very strong early game pick. Lyra protects those quite nicely. They play well from range. Although G2 has a clear plan of what they want to do, what they want to do is also clear to Mousesports. You know, they just want to dive in, they just want to go aggressive. Mousesports, if they play correctly, can actually abuse that a little bit. They can lock down the area with Bright Bulwark, try and get poked as G2 initiates and disengage, then they can turn the heat up. G2 needs these engagements and these victories and fights to be very snappy. If the fights go too long, it's not going to work well for them.
Apfel on his way, though. He's on his way to that tension bow, which Dark Potato has finished for G2. Those early 2 kills have really helped out. Maybe looking for an Impale here. Goes forward, does miss. Bright Water goes down as well. Drifting Dart does come forward and actually just kiting back. The healing was just a little bit too much for them to deal with. Nice Oblivion onto Keanu. Does end up going down. There's the first one on the board for Mousesports. G2, what looked like the perfect engage, was just dodged out by Mouse.
This is another reason why Samuel is really good into G2's composition. It's quite likely that G2 stacks on top of each other in a fight. Samuel's area of effect damage does a lot of work. I mean, even Buckshot at the earlier levels, as weapon power, does deal significant damage. G2 got punished exactly in the way that I was talking about there. You know, they tried to just go in, but Mousesports controlled the area too well. I think that G2 really needs to focus on controlling vision, finding opportunities to go in where they're not necessarily 3v3. You know, try and take an unfair advantage. Try and fight when you have the numbers lead. But also try and fight maybe in the jungle. Try and fight in locations that have more walls for you to have access to, that have objectives that aren't strong allies to the enemy team in the form of that turret. If G2 picks the fights in the right way, they can work around these problems that the composition has.
Now rotating back from those fronts. Right Bulwark already used just to make sure Dark Potato can't get on the back line. Same with the Buckshot. Buckshot's going to be quite important. Does reveal anybody hiding in the bushes and slows up a little bit as well. G2, they need to be able to find an engagement here, but Just Man's very, very good at disengaging. And the Doom going forward, so have Oblivion available to him in a few seconds as well. Dark Potato taking a lot of damage to it, so is Apfel. Dives in from Keanu. Very, very close. Oblivion does come out, does miss. Actually, here's the turret instead, but you can't sleep machinery.
I don't know. Have you ever slept your computer? It's an
very
option
true.
right next to restart and shut down.
Technically sleep. Mine doesn't snore at least.
It doesn't snore?
Nope.
My computer's pretty loud, actually. All right, so this turret likely to be going down during this push. I don't see G2 being able to defend it, and smartly they're not going to try. That would have definitely been a big mistake. Right now, Mousesports is really abusing the fact that G2 doesn't get to fight unless they all in. You know, it's maybe G2, an argument could be made that they just need to go quicker. That's another problem that is perhaps not panning out here. Something like when Oblivion misses, as it did, it is a window of opportunity, is an option, but it's tough. G2, also one other thing to take into consideration is that they do have a spike coming up where they will probably have an advantage. Specifically, it's when Hundor hits 2 items, because right now, stuck on just a Poison Shiv and a Heavy Steel, not really the best spot to be in. We've seen much quicker 2 tier 3 spikes. Trying to get Apfel.
Apfel gets jumped on, but yeah, that's a lot of damage. That Buckshot, but triple root's going to be big there. Becomes the attack of the pack as well. Fountain healing up G2. Can't really find the damage. Mouse, that looks so bad, but the healing is just too much for G2 to actually bear, and they're going to have to back off. Minion Candy used once again for Mouse, and they're pushing forward.
I actually would have liked to see G2 go in off the back there. Right when Mouse started to move up, I think G2 could have gone in because Imperial Sigil was down, there was no more healing. Maybe they would have had enough damage to actually pick up a kill. But here comes Keanu, healed up from base.
Another Bright Bulwark. Keanu is healed, did manage to get the back off. They're going to be able to defend their turret for the moment. But still Mouse with that execution potential from Apfel. Tension Bow proc, along with his passive proc, just destroys Hundor in the front line. They have to play around that.
All right, we got a Sorrow Blade now for Apfel's Gwen. That's going to be big. We've already seen pretty substantial damage coming out of just the Tension Bow. This amplifies that a lot. We do have the answer from Hundor. He's picked one up as well, but his ability to do damage is much more contingent on G2 controlling the fight in the way that they are able to use to their advantage. If things go wrong, then Hundor will not be able to do nearly as well as Gwen. Doesn't have the bailout card up her sleeve. That is the skedaddle. Right now, Mousesports, I like the fact that they're playing up a little bit. I do think they need to stock up on some scout traps, pop them down in these bushes. If you know that you're able to force G2 back and make them, you know, run around and play to the beat of your drum, you might as well drop the vision, right? You might as well gain that additional information, that additional advantage.
Attack of the back is going to come through. A nice Yithy and wall onto Apfel. They're targeting him and he ends up going down. And a beautiful Oblivion actually onto 3 members of G2 is going to send them packing though. But Just Man a little bit caught. Passageway used. Keanu, Hundor and Dark Potato following it through, but dashing underneath that turret using those boots. They are able to escape with only losing 1.
That's why you need scout traps, straight up. The flank coming out of Dark Potato won that fight 100%. As Apfel, where do you go? Even if you skedaddle, there's not really a good direction you can move there. If you're next to the turret, you're going to get stunned there. If you move down, you're going to be next to the wall, you're going to get stunned there. If you move on top of the turret, you're not moving towards your base, so you're not actually making distance. There's no good answer, you know? Right now, if especially the gold mine goes away, immense payout for G2, they're right back in this. They have a gold lead. I don't know necessarily if that gold lead is going to translate to a heck of a lot right now, but certainly it's something they can try and leverage.
300 apiece. We are 10 minutes in with only 1,000 gold separating the two teams. G2 are actually in the lead at this point, even though they are down one turret. Now, where do they go from here? That is the question, because, like you said, vision not in Mouse's favor right now. They need to be able to get more scout traps down and more flares in order to spot out Dark Potato's flanks. It's perfect for him if he's unspotted in these fights, but, I mean, realistically, Hundle's only going to get stronger. He's got Sora Blade now. He's working towards another damage item.
All right, Mousesports moving up again quite aggressively. That flare lasted a while, but here comes Dark Potato.
Attack of the pack is going to come through. Bite Bulwark's going to be there, but they're just going to push on past it. Waveroot's only going to find one. It's going to find two, but now Dark Potato is going to have to protect Hundle. They do it perfectly as that fell falls first, but Oblivion is really good for two members versus one. I'm the Doom goes down, but the captain, Just Man, does manage to pick up the kill, at least on Hundle, so he does end up falling. Doesn't mean G2 can do a whole lot now.
Again, scout traps, right? If you keep getting flanked and the same thing keeps happening, it's a bad situation to be in. Let's have a look at the replay. You see Dark Potato from down at the bottom is able to just use boots and get all the way behind the opponents. Also, Mousesports, they didn't really play to their win condition in that fight. That's kind of the second thing we got to talk about. They weren't focusing on kiting. They were focusing on trying to get in a deep position to take down Hundor quickly, and you don't need to take down Hundor quickly with the composition that Mousesports has. Sure, it's nice if you can, if it doesn't punish you, but it definitely does punish you if that's going to buy time for Dark Potato without even using combat roll to get behind you and put you in a position where you can't retreat, right? Hundor, he also almost got out of that fight. That Oblivion, rather than being a huge nightmare, was nearly kind of a pleasant nap. But thankfully for the side of Mousesports, Just Man was able to secure at least that kill and avoid the ace. Now, G2, even though we've seen two fights back-to-back go their way, I'm not willing to say that they're in the driver's seat right now. The fights they've been making happen have been off of the back of Mousesports overextending with no vision. If they can make the same kinds of fight happen straight up, I'll be feeling a lot different about G2's hopes here.
Keanu's hiding. That's going to be a beautiful crucible to get out of the way of the Impale. The Bright Bulwark's going to come through. He's going to stop a lot of those walls hitting. Hundle going really low in the back line. Isn't going to get sleeped. And actually, yes, he does. He actually gets killed by the Oblivion. And the Doom getting chased out by Keanu. It is a 1v1. Dark Potato rolling forwards, though. Can he find the last basic attack? He can. That passageway used by Just Man to get out of there. And underneath the turret, Keanu's going to go down. Whoops. That'll leave Dark Potato and Just Man. Again, the last member's alive. They're finding these fights, like you said, but they cannot find the objectives that they need.
That was a much better straight-up fight from G2. At the same time, though, Mousesports, weird positioning throughout. Let's have a look at the replay. You can see right off the bat, Dark Potato doesn't exactly land a stun. There's a lot of opportunity for a disengage, but the speed boost, combined with the fact that Mousesports does not commit to retreating, puts Apfel in a very dicey position. He also misses wildly on the Ace's high. Without that to buy time, it is admittedly tough for him to make as much distance as he would have liked. I would like to see Just Man pop Portal earlier there too. Yeah, maybe your teammates are going to actually be pulled closer to the turret as well as your enemies, but at the same time, you're going to be putting them in a position where they have to fight closer to your turret. You have something to leverage.
There is a small pause. Looks like maybe there's a little problem with Mousesports, but we should be getting back into game very, very shortly. Just Man's like, my Bright Bulwarks aren't on cooldown quick enough. I need more of them. We have seen actually Echo being picked up by Lyra's at the end of the season. There's something else to point out. Echo being quite a versatile item now.
I'm not sure I'd go for it here. You know, the thing is about Echo on Lyra, it's really, really good if you're against a lot of dashes, right? Because Bright Bulwark twice is the best ability against that.
The best.
Right?
That's a good way to put it.
But the composition that we're seeing out of G2 here isn't really that focused on it. Sure, it's good for them if the Impale can come out and if Combat Roll and the... which one is it? Truth is a Tooth or Law of the Claw? I'll never remember. Okay, so yeah, sure, it's good if those are able to come out and aren't interrupted by Bright Bulwark. Yeah, try saying that one 10 times fast. But at the same time, right, there's a lot of just straight up movement speed on that lineup, and that's kind of the way that they've been making plays happen. Like if you look at Dark Potato 2 fights ago, he did not roll into position, he did not impale someone to kick off a fight, he just ran through Bright Bulwark with boots. Once they get War Treads, I actually think on both the Lance and the Fortress, it's going to be not that useful to have the Bright Bulwark. Sure, it's good, you know, maybe it's fine, but I prefer to get like an Atlas Pauldron because it shuts down weapon power builds so heavily. I prefer just more armor so that you're able to stay on the front line, body block for your team, that kind of thing. Also, just picking up overall defensive items is probably more useful. But if she were to go for an Echo, the bigger reason why it would be good is probably the Imperial Sigil. Being able to throw down 2 of those lets you fight in a larger space, not necessarily clump up for an Impale or a Githian wall. There are reasons why it could be strong too.
Well, we are back into the game. The brief pause was also brief, thank goodness. Mousesports seemed to have sorted out the issue. That's pick and ban. Where are we in the game? There we go. Perfection. G2 right now, they are playing very perfect in these fights. Like we mentioned, Dark Potato, he's 4-0 right at this very moment in time. This Lance is so formidable, and you wonder why people are scared of it, and this is exactly the reason why.
I mean, this composition is something G2 would have ran months and months ago. It's definitely something they're comfortable on, both in terms of the individual heroes as well as the composition as a whole. I do want to touch on the fact that Lyra has now picked up an Atlas Pauldron, like we were discussing during the pause. That's going to be a big item. It also really shuts down Lance's ability to deal damage. Your attack speed is already so slow, it just makes it kind of a joke. But that being said, maybe a reflex block will come through. We'll see what happens. War Treads are already done on Keanu. I think that's a critical item. I would like to see Dark Potato go for them very soon, but I think, yeah, first things first, getting a Asara Blade makes a lot of sense. He's in a bad position now, though.
He is. Let's use that combat roll. Aces High goes a little bit wide. Did even pop the Aegis just in case. For G2, they are getting a flank off there. Attack the back is going to get popped, and Hundo in the back line just doing a whole immense load of damage. Oblivion's going to sleep too, and once again, Mouse just seemed to pull this one around at the last very second with both Hundo and Atfel trading.
I can't believe Dark Potato was playing so aggressive at the end of that fight. That was nice stuff, actually. I think that the fact that Hundor gets so much fortified health when Attack of the Pack gets popped really took Mousesports by surprise. I don't think they were ready for that.
Atfel right now is 1-6. This is the worst scoreline we've seen him in this best of 5 right now. Maybe this is the nerves setting in. They are in a critical situation. They need to be able to pull out a win here to face the game's in day number 2. Right now, with 15 minutes in, G2, they've had the fights, but right now they're just picking the right target. And yes, that's Atfel, and I guess that's why it's had so many deaths, but at the same time, you've got Skedaddle, you've got the ability to use Bright Bulwark on Lyra. It's got to be maybe a little bit over-aggression from him to put himself in these fights.
Yeah, I do think Atfel has been positioned very aggressively. The attack range on Gwen is not great, so you kind of have to be a bit further up if you want to deal damage to Hundor. And it is also worth noting that although Dark Potato is somewhat threatening on the front line, it's mostly in a burst capacity. Over the course of a longer fight, you really do need to be dealing damage pretty much exclusively to Hundor if you want to actually win it. So I don't blame Atfel for trying to be kind of aggressive. All right, that was a good Bright Bolt. That Bright Bolt did a lot of work.
That was very, very perfect. Looking good, Just Man. Just going to now chase G2 away. A little bit of damage now on the side of the Fortress. You said you wanted to see him mix up the build. A little bit of defensive stats, a little bit of teamwork, and now actually picking up.
So Fortress didn't really need anything past this, like core utility package, right? You've got the War Treads, Atlas, and Fountain. Crucible isn't even that great because a lot of the time you're trying to push past an Oblivion anyway. I do think at maybe after the Aftershock, it would be good to pick up a Crucible. But for now, I'm actually totally cool with Keanu pushing the tempo with his team, trying to make the game end sooner by going for something that's going to augment the burst. That's going to let Hundor, you know, we saw that last fight, right? He traded with Atfel. Well, if there's an Aftershock on the Fortress and they did that additional burst to Atfel, maybe the trade is more like Hundor lives on 10%. That's the kind of thing that can happen. Crucible wouldn't have done a lot there either. So I don't mind this. I do think, though, eventually, absolutely Crucible against Oblivion makes a lot of sense. You've already got Aegis, so they're not getting picked up on Dark Potato or Hundor.
Very little armor on the side of Mouse right now. Only a couple of coat of plates. Now Hundo has actually picked up the Bone Saw here to chew through some of that. It's going to be quite influential considering they're going double weapon power. In fact, Suijay said it on the desk, they aren't afraid to do this. They are one of the teams that do and can play around it.
Yeah, it's definitely something which can be strong if your opponents don't react the right way. I think this is a little light armor, light on the armor, rather, from Mousesports. But if the game goes long enough, they're going to have plenty of time to pick up more, and it's not as if G2 Esports is pushing very heavily. I mean, not even one turret picked up. Dark Potato's got an Atlas in this next fight. Keep your eyes peeled on that. There's a metal jacket for Gwen, but keep your eyes on the Atlas from Dark Potato. He needs to make it work for it to be, in my eyes, the right decision over War Treads, because War Treads, you're guaranteed getting value out of every single time because you're giving value to your teammates. Atlas, if it gets blocked or if you're not able to get in position because you don't have War Treads, could be a rough situation. Obviously, Keanu might be able to do enough with his, but I do think 2 is important for G2 Esports.
G2 looking very reminiscent of their London performance as they came in #1 seed, but this time they came in as the #6 seed. Now they want to prove themselves to EU and actually just, in fact, the whole West and the world, if you will. They're really showing their prowess as a team and their ability to chain CC as well. Not necessarily this composition, but compositions previous. It's just elegant.
I would like G2 to wait like a minute more before they fight at the least, just so Keanu can get a reflex block. Crucible, yeah, maybe you don't need it. But if he gets hit by Ace's Hide, all of the utility's gone for Mousesports. G2, nice play.
Well, they're going to need a utility. That's a passageway into the bulwark. I believe it's going to come through. It's going to get dodged out. In fact, it's going to sleep one. But look in the front line. Hundor is just surviving this entirety. Mouse, well, the flank off, but it didn't matter in the end. G2 find a double. Looking for the triple, but I'm the Doom is going to be able to use his boost to get out. A proactive play of just pushing the lane, taking the turret. Worked out in so much favor for them.
Proactive play, great from G2 Esports, but reactive play from Mousesports, very confusing to me there. Portaling directly onto a team that wants nothing more to be on top of you is very risky, especially when your team composition excels at kiting. They were trying to make up for a mistake, which was giving up position in the lane to an extent where G2 could just go for the turret, and they got punished so heavily for it. G2 Esports, with that, find a Kraken, a turret, and 2 kills. This is the kind of lead that just breaks the game wide open. G2 Esports have their eyes set, Jaws, on day 2, and maybe taking down another North American team.
Well, it's in their record. It's in their blood now. They're looking for blood. A Kraken on the board. And actually, that was the latest turret we've seen taken. Latest first turret we've seen taken by both these teams. Stretching on 18 minutes. Now we're approaching that 20-minute mark. They're looking pretty strong. That turret's going to be going down very quickly.
All right, so keep your eyes. Oh, here we go.
Oh, hang on a second. Keep your eyes on the team fight right here. Ace's Hide's going to be good for that. Oblivion wasn't enough to just sway them. Attack at the back comes through, and that will be just man using that passageway to get over the wall, but it's going to get followed through again. Hundor comes up big. I'm the Doom, last one alive. Mouse. Oh, scurries back into his little hole. An ace for G2. The Kraken's still on the board. They're going to crack the base.
This is rough, man. When you've got something like that Kraken to play off of, it's not so hard for G2 to make distance in. They're not going to get hit by the turret till they start dealing damage. This could be a game-winning push here. Kraken's still over half health.
Oh dear, Atfel, he's up in 4 seconds. Just Man up in 9, Doom up in about 10-2. There goes one turret. Those timers are getting reduced, but are they going to be out? Are they going to be enough? Another turret falls, all 3 members are down. Crystal is going to get focused here by G2. They're chunking it, the Kraken's getting untouched, and we will see you in day 2.
Beautiful stuff from G2 Esports. Mousesports, it's a heartbreaking loss.